At the top of the world lies an empire with no emperor, a wilderness of ice, yet the richest frontier on Earth. For 1,000 years, nations have gambled men, treasure, and power on this frozen prize. Tonight, we sail into the Arctic Circle, where climate, commerce, and conquest collide. Ships vanish, men starve, flags freeze in place. But still they come: Vikings, Tsars, Imperial admirals, oil barons, and nuclear navies. Each believes they can bend the polar night to their will. Each discovers the same unforgiving truth. In the Arctic, the ice is the real superpower. Today, as the ice melts, the old struggle ignites again. New shipping lanes, untapped oil and gas, strategic choke points. From Viking longships to satellite-guided submarines, this is the 1,000-year battle to control the roof of the world. The Arctic Circle is not a single place, but a ring, a moving line encircling the top of the globe. Within it, 1/6 of Earth's landmass, colossal shelves of sea ice, and coasts claimed by Russia, Canada, the United States, Denmark via Greenland, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, and Finland. Beneath this frozen ocean lie hydrocarbons, minerals, and new sea routes worth trillions. Around the year 1000, Norse seafarers push north and west. Their sleek longships ride between Greenland's cliffs and ice-choked bays. To them, the Arctic is both highway and hazard. They carve out fragile colonies in Greenland and reach Vinland in North America. Walrus ivory, furs, and trade forged the first European link in the polar economy. Long before maps drew neat circles, Arctic indigenous peoples mastered this world. Inuit, Sami, Nenets, Chukchi, and others read snowdrifts like text, track caribou across white horizons, and build economies on whales, seals, and reindeer. Their knowledge of clothing, sleds, diet, and navigation will decide who survives and who is swallowed by the polar dark. By the 15th and 16th centuries, Europe hunts new paths to Asia. The Arctic shifts from myth to map. Dreamers sketch a northeast passage above Siberia and a northwest passage through Canada's labyrinth of islands. Control either route, they believe, and you control global trade. The Arctic becomes a potential shortcut in the age of empires. Explorers turn dream into obsession. British, Dutch, Russian, and Scandinavian expeditions push into uncharted ice. Masts splinter, hulls freeze fast. Men drag lifeboats over pressure ridges like moving mountains. Many never return, yet even disaster fuels prestige. Planting a flag in the ice means honor at home and the promise of future trade monopolies. In 1845, Sir John Franklin sails to complete the Northwest Passage. 2 modern ships, over 130 men, and not one survivor. Their fate, slowly revealed by Inuit testimony and later archaeology, shocks Victorian Britain. The Arctic is exposed as a graveyard of imperial confidence. Yet the tragedy only deepens the mystique of conquering the ice. While Britain chases glory in Canada, Russia builds an Arctic empire along Siberia. Cossacks and traders exploit fur, ivory, and fish. Later, steam and early icebreakers probe the Northeast Passage. Control of this corridor would bind distant Pacific ports to European Russia, turning the frozen Laptov and Kara seas into a strategic inland highway. By the early 1900s, a new prize emerges: the North Pole itself. Norwegian, American, and British expeditions race north using dogs, airships, even primitive aircraft. Claims of first arrivals remain contested, but the symbolism is unmistakable. Reaching the pole means mastering navigation, logistics, and endurance at the limits of human capability and national pride. During World War II, the Arctic becomes a battlefield. Allied convoys brave U-boats and Luftwaffe raids to supply the Soviet port of Murmansk. Icebergs and storms kill almost as effectively as torpedoes. After 1945, the Arctic turns into the shortest path between American and Soviet missiles, transforming this frozen ocean into a front line of the Cold War. Nuclear power rewrites the Arctic game. Submarines slip beneath the ice, invisible, carrying weapons that could end civilization. Nuclear icebreakers carve year-round channels along Russia's northern coast. research stations double as listening posts. Sovereignty now means not just planting flags, but patrolling the depths, the skies, and even space above the polar cap. In the late 20th century, satellites reveal a new twist. The Arctic is melting, faster than predicted. Summer sea ice thins and retreats, exposing blue water where solid ice once barred passage. Shipping companies and governments eye a seasonal northwest passage and a Russian-controlled northern sea route, shortcuts that could reshape global trade maps. Beneath the seabed and tundra lie vast oil and gas reserves. The United States, Russia, Norway, and multinational corporations drill offshore and inland. Each well is an engineering marvel and a potential catastrophe where cleanup is nearly impossible. Economic temptation collides with fragile ecosystems and the rights of indigenous communities living nearest to the rigs. Today, conflict is often waged with maps and legal claims. Under international law, nations argue that their continental shelves extend under the polar seabed, granting rights to minerals below. Russia, Canada, and Denmark submit rival claims that overlap at the pole itself. Diplomacy, science, and quiet military posturing intertwine in boardrooms far from the ice. Amid these rivalries, Arctic peoples face the most immediate change. Thinning sea ice endangers hunting routes. Coastal villages erode and slump into warming seas. Yet communities adapt, combining satellite forecasts with ancestral knowledge, legal battles with cultural revival. For them, the Arctic is not a frontier to conquer, but a homeland to defend. Across 1,000 years, the technology changes, from oars and sails to reactors and GPS, but the pattern remains. Power follows trade, trade follows routes, and routes depend on ice. Empires have risen and faded, chasing shorter paths, richer resources, and strategic advantage around the pole. The ice, indifferent, has alternately opened and slammed shut the gates. Now the greatest transformation in Arctic history is underway. Where explorers once froze to death seeking a passage, container ships may soon cruise seasonally. Yet the same melt threatens weather patterns, coastal cities, and wildlife worldwide. The Arctic is no longer a distant stage for imperial dreams. It is the engine room of a changing planet. The story of the Arctic Circle is not finished. It is being written in shipping contracts and climate data, in indigenous councils and military exercises. For 1,000 years, humanity has fought to master this imperial ice. The question now is reversed. In a warming world, can we learn at last to live with it instead of against it?